Hello and welcome back to another episode of Board Game Tutorials. I'm Cymrych Hughs from Blue Hand Gamers, and today we're going to go over Dice Forge. Now, Dice Forge is a 2 to 4 player game that's competitive, but there is no direct combat or anything like that. There's a way to knock each other's pawns back to the beginning, but other than that, it's mostly just strategy and trying to outthink your opponents. In Dice Forge, you're trying to collect sun shards, moon shards, and gold coins in order to upgrade your dice. You get to peel off the faces and upgrade them by putting more powerful faces onto your dice. And then at the beginning of every player's turn, all players get a divine blessing by rolling both of their sun and moon dice and gaining whatever comes up on those faces. Even though it's the active player's turn, everyone gets bonuses. But before we go into any more detail on that, let's first check out some quick setup. Now, before we jump into the game, there are a couple of things we need to go over just really quick for purposes of setup. You'll notice some cards have a little blue circle on the back, and other cards do not. These are meant for introductory setup. This is for beginners or people who have not played the game before at all. You'll also notice that the value of the card is listed in the corner, either on the left side or the right side. This is to indicate what area or what slot this stack of cards gets placed. Since this card here has the 3 sun shards listed on the right corner, you place that right next to the 3 on the board. Over here we have the 2 sun shards next to the 2. 4 and 5. And over here in the beginning zone, both of them cost 1, but again, it'll either be on the right or the left corner. So you place them there according to the position of the cost. You'll do the same thing on the other side for the moon cards. Again, in this case, we have the introductory cards. We have our 1s, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And at the very end of the board, we have our most powerful ones, the 6 sun, the 6 moon, and then the most powerful of all, it's only 5, but it costs 5 sun and 5 moon in order to claim this card. Right, so when you start the game, players will gain a beginning game bonus for gold coins. In a 4-player game, you will go in player order. Whoever first player is, they will immediately gain 3 coins. Second player will gain 2, third player will gain 1, and the 4th player will gain none. If you have less players than that, you follow the same gold gain, but you stop before you hit the 0. And what I mean by that is, in a 3-player game, first, second, and third player will gain 3, 2, and 1 coin. In a 2-player game, you'll gain 3 coins for the first player and only 2 coins for the second. Now, in starting the game, we'll jump right off into phase 1, which is the Divine Blessing phase. In which case, if you are the active player, you're the only one taking an actual turn this round, or this turn. However, all players get to roll their dice. And depending on what faces were rolled, those are the resources you gain. So all players roll their dice for Divine Blessing. All players gain the resources that was rolled. And then you will place the dice with the exact same faces you rolled, face up, on your hero board. Now, after all players are done with their Divine Blessing, you can move on to Phase 2, which is where the active player can play the effect of any permanent effect cards they have. Now, a permanent effect card will be like this owl here. Once you obtain these heroic feat cards around the game board, you perform whatever effect is on them immediately if it is an instant effect, and then you will place it near your player inventory face down. If it has an effect listed, you are now allowed to do that in any order amongst all the cards you own. Now the game comes with 2 pamphlets. One is the rules/setup. The other one is a player aid. You can look through this 2-page front and back little booklet, pamphlet if you will. It will tell you what all of the symbols of all of the cards mean, and it'll give you more details on how that card is played. For instance, what this card means is you can gain any one of your choice of either coin, sun shard, or moon shard. But just remember, these permanent effect cards can only be played one time during your turn. Now you can choose what order you play your permanent effect cards, and just because you have them does not necessarily mean you have to play them. It's entirely up to you. If you've got cards that give you points, you might as well. So during Phase 3, this is where the active player actually gets to take their action. Now during your turn, your action could be one of 2 things. One is making an offering to the gods. Now when you make an offering to the gods, you pay the amount of coin that is listed next to that section, and you can buy any number of dice faces you want, as long as you have the gold for it, with one major stipulation. You cannot buy the same face twice. You can only buy from each individual pool type one time. Now in the box, we have all of our dice faces shown with the gold value next to them. And then at the bottom, you'll notice some that don't have gold values. They have a specific symbol next to them. These are gained through heroic feat cards. Which brings us to the second option amongst your turn. If you don't want to make an offering to the gods and get new dice faces, what you can do is perform a heroic feat. Now during setup, your colored token or pawn will be on your specific color's starting spot. Now if you perform a heroic feat, you can go to any one of these portals. Notice most of the portals share 2 different cards. Or in the end of the map, you share 3 different cards. What you do is you can go to the sun or the moon side, or to the very end where it's the high sun and the high moon, or the both. But when you choose to go somewhere, you place your pawn on that portal, you pay the indicated number of resources. In this case, I can choose either 2 sun or 3 sun. If I choose 2 sun, I would play this card. Now if there's like a lightning bolt symbol on there, which in this case there is not, that means instant effect. Like this card here, this does have a lightning bolt symbol, meaning you get to gain this effect immediately. If you need help figuring out what it is, again, refer to the player aid book and look for this specific card. The book will show you every card's face and explain what it does. Now after you've performed the instant effect, you will flip it face down, and put it in your player effect area. Take note, at the end of the game, any of the glory points listed on a card will get added to your endgame score. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most endgame glory will be the winner. In this game, if there's ties, then everybody with the tie are all considered the winner. Congratulations, you all won. Now, when you moved your pawn, you perform your heroic feat, you make sure to pay that number by moving your token on your player board down that many resources. You play your effect, you gain your card, and now we can go on to phase 4, which is pretty much just, it lets you do it again. So in phase 4, you can spend 2 sun shards in order to perform a second action. Now, if you spend the 2 sun shards and you do take a second action, this is a whole second action, but only from phase 3. There's no more divine blessings, and you do not get to use your permanent effect cards the second time. All this means is you can make your choice to either make an offering to the gods and gain new dice faces, or perform another heroic feat by going to another portal and performing that card. Now let's go over a few of the more detailed aspects of the game. 1, let's go over ousting. If you want to go to a portal that's already occupied by another player, you can still go there. However, what that means is they get sent back to their beginning spot on the spawn portals, and they get to roll a free divine blessing. So they will roll both their light and dark dice and gain whatever faces were face up. 2, let's go over the dice themselves. Now, when you make an offering and gain new die faces, you will perform this immediately. In the beginning of the game, it's easy because everything is so low value and you want to upgrade pretty much all of them. In this case, we can remove a 1 value gold coin and replace it with a 3. What you'll do is, the way these are designed, they're pointed and rounded on the corners. You will place it underneath the die face and pry it upward. And then you can snap that one right in its place. Then you'll store the old die faces right next to your player inventory board. And then another thing we have to go over is there's some level 1 cards that are very unique. On the moon side, we have this card. It only costs 1 moon shard, and once you got it, the instant effect is to gain one of these. In which case you attach this to the end of your player inventory board for bonus storage. If you normally go to gain resources and there's no space left for your token to go, it's considered wasted. It's just removed. You don't get it. It's unfortunate. A workaround for that is the player upgrade. You can upgrade your storage so that you can gain 4 more gold, 3 more sun shards, and 3 more moon shards. Again, this card is worth points, so it'll be flipped over and added to your cards that do not have any permanent effect. You'll keep them in separate piles. You'll keep one pile showing all of the permanent effects you have, and then you'll keep a separate pile of just cards that will gain you points at the end of the game. Let's go over the other card available to us. Also, for 1 moon, we can gain this card. Now when you gain this card, you take this little hammer token and you will flip this card over. You'll line it up right here and place your hammer token right in the corner. Now what this means is, anytime you gain coins, you can either gain coins along your player track or divert those coins to the forge. Now if you ever get the token all the way around to the very end, you now have 10 glory points worth of extra points at the end. Then you can flip it over to its Roman numeral 2 side and start all over. In which case, if you make it all the way to the end, the number 2 will then be worth 15 extra points at the end of the game. And then one last thing we need to go over is based on card effects, there is a small change in wording. If a card ever asks you or tells you to perform a minor blessing, what you do is you just choose one of your dice. Roll just that one and gain whatever that one die says. That's pretty much the basics for Dice Forge. It's not an overly complicated game, and there are some crazy symbols, but there's a really nice player aid book that'll show you and tell you what all of those mean. After you perform a specific set number of turns, which are listed right on the game board itself. In a 2 or 4 player game, once the round marker gets all the way to that section, in this case 9, the game will end at the end of that round. And one last special rule we should go over is for a 2-player game. Now, in a 2-player game, there's a couple of different things that change. One of which is your temple, where all of the die faces are located. In a 2-player game, you have to remove 2 random die faces from all pools. Most of the pools are the exact same. However, some of the pools have varied or different effects. So you'll randomize those and pull 2 of them out to be removed from the game. Also, in a 2-player game, to keep it more fair, you will perform a divine blessing twice during the beginning of every player's turn. So when it comes to phase 1, both players in the game will roll twice, gain all of the rewards, and then whatever the die faces were that were faced up at the second roll will stay face up on your player board. Now at the end of the game, for end game scoring, your player board has a section or a track for tracking how much glory points you have. Then after that, you'll take all of the cards that the heroic feats that you have performed, add up the total in the corners, and add that to the number you already have, and then the highest score wins. And that's pretty much it for the basics of Dice Forge. It's a fairly fast-paced game. It's mostly simple. It's got some symbols that are a little iffy here and there, but again, the player aid book is very helpful, and overall, it's a very fun and worthwhile game. Once again, I'm Cymrych Hughs from Blue Hand Gamers, and I wish you all a good night.